we're supposed to move into what really is our fourth plenary session. And this is the whole idea of this session, is to provide a foundational knowledge of why we all are in this business of ombudsmanship and, of course, grievance handling and trying to resolve dispute. And to lead this session, we are deeply privileged to have Justice Florence Mumba, who has really taken part of our holiday. I understand you were supposed to be doing something else at home, and you decided to honor us with this. As I said, yes, as I said in the morning, Justice Mumba is on record to be the first woman to have been appointed to this position in the African continent. Justice Mumba comes originally from Zambia. And in fact, just before I do that, I think I owe Madam Sekoni an apology. Where's Madam Sekoni? Madam Sekoni, the Public Protector of South Africa, she represented the International Ombudsman Institute. And we just forgot to mention that the Public Protector of Zambia was also here. But whenever she comes in, we will get her to recognize herself. Justice Florence Mumba has held judicial office since 1980. She was the first woman to be appointed High Court judge in Zambia. So she is in many ways a first of many things. After 8 years as High Court judge, she was appointed to the office of the Investigator General, which was the original name that Zambia called its ombudsman, when it was first created. She was appointed in 1989, and while holding this office, she served as director on the International Ombudsman Institute board, where she was also elected vice president of the board in 1996. As you were told in the morning, the International Ombudsman Institute is a global body that represents ombudsman and similar bodies around the world. Justice Mumba served on the UN on the status of women from 1992, the UN Commission, beg your pardon, on the status of women from 1992 to 1995. She participated in the formulation of resolution to characterize rape as a war crime. Those who are familiar with this area of human rights would know how much has been achieved by this work. Because a lot of the serious conflict we've had in Africa, in fact, not only in Africa, but primarily Congo and in the Horn area, this has become a very serious problem. And Justice Mumba, in many ways, pioneered the effort that has made that global progress. In 1997, she was appointed Supreme Court judge and was elected judge of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. I remember seeing her on TV reading out the judgment on, was it the former head of president of Yugoslavia, where she also served as vice president from 1999 to 2001. From 2003 to 2005, Justice Mumba served as judge of the appeals chambers in the ICTY and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. From August 2008 to January 2001, she served as chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Zambia, and she currently sits as judge at the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia. So you can see she's not just Africa first, she's in many ways a very vast leader, woman leader, that we all Africans, and particularly those who work in this area, are deeply proud of. So it's my honor to invite Justice Mumba to chair this very first session.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. On the panel, we have 4 speakers, and I'll be inviting them to come and sit on the podium. I have Ms. Victoria Pierman, Ombudsman of Bermuda. Please come to the podium. I have the Ombudsman for Botswana, Honorable Augustine Makona Tsotle. Please come to the podium. We have the Ombudsman in Latin America, Adaptation and Perspectives of Alba M.T. Martin. Please come to the podium. She is former Ombudsman of Curaçao and former President of Carao. Yes, I'll come to that. And then our other speaker is Mr. Eduardo Nduwibana from Burundi, the Ombudsman of Burundi. Please come to the podium. We have an exciting array of presentations this afternoon, and without much ado, I'll introduce the first speaker, Victoria Pierman. Her biography is very rich. She was appointed Bermuda's second Ombudsman, effective 1st March 17, 2014. She has been a member of the Caribbean Ombudsman Association Council since 2015 and served as President of the Caribbean Association there from July 2017 to July 2019. She was elected as International Ombud Institute Caribbean Director and Regional President for the Caribbean and Latin America in February 2019. Ms. Pearson graduated cum laude Bachelor of Arts degree from American International College, Massachusetts. She received her Bachelor of Laws degree from the London School of Economics in the UK. In 1992, Ms. Pierman was called to the bar in England and Wales by the Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn and to the Bermuda Bar in 1993. Prior to her appointment as Ombudsman, Ms. Pierman worked as a litigation attorney from 1993 to 2014. She was an Appleby Spelling and Kemp Scholar and commenced her legal career at that firm. She later joined the law firm of Lord Simmons and Warner. From 1998, she was a founding managing partner of Juris Law Chambers, where she worked until her appointment as Ombudsman. Ms. Pierman has a varied background in administrative, constitutional, civil, and criminal law. She is a well-known trial lawyer, having appeared as counsel at tribunals and all levels of courts in Bermuda. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. She has also taught several students who are now practicing in her own country and other parts of the world. She, from 2201 to 2003, she served as government senator and junior minister with responsibility for the then Ministry of Education and Development and the Ministry of Transport and the Ministry of Public Works. She has served as an elected member of the Bermuda Bar Council and on the Board of Governors at the Bermuda College and several local education boards. She has also served on various statutory tribunals, including Bermuda Justice System Review Committee and the Law Reform Committee. As Ombudsman, she has presented several papers at several international conferences. Ms. Pearson, I'm proud to say, is a mother of a 17-year-old son whom she says has appointed himself Deputy Ombudsman over her. His name is Simon. It gives me a lot of pleasure when I see women professionals carrying on all the assignments that a woman can carry on, raising a family and moving on in the career. So I present Ms. Pierman as our first speaker.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests all, ladies and gentlemen. colleagues, friends, family, good afternoon and greetings. Now, I should have practiced this a little better, so please bear with me. I want to try and say good afternoon in Yoruba, Akasa. Is that okay? All right. I'm going to also try in Hausa, Raka. Was that close? Okay. Obviously, I got that one wrong. But I was told that if all else failed, because your country has over 200 languages, I could try Pidgin. And that might be something I have a chance of getting right, maybe. And so I say in Pidgin, how una day? And I say, hope una day well. Thank you. So I would like to firstly extend a sincere thank you to the organizers of this expo and our host, the Chief Public Complaints Commissioner for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I also want to thank Dr. Victor Ayani, the Director of Governance and Management Services International, GMSI, both for their vision in organizing and hosting this international expo. And I thank the sponsors, the participants, the attendees, the volunteers, and the hardworking hotel and conference staff. I can tell you from personal experience that hosting conferences, even on a very small scale, involves an enormous amount of work, time and resources. And that's for any office, no matter how well resourced. Recently, we held the Caribbean Ombudsman's Conference in Bermuda in May. I think I'm still recuperating. And so I like to think of myself as a conference host survivor. And I now consider myself an expert on what not to do, and that's host another one. Now, I know that the team that have put in the effort here, I know that they're tired. They've done a very excellent job, and it is no mean feat to be the first at anything. So this first of its kind expo, it's well worth it, but I imagine that they'll all want to sleep in for the next 2 weekends. And all conferences are stressful, but I can tell you that hosting a conference of ombudsman is a whole different story, because ultimately we're talking about people who are used to having the last word and people who specialize in telling you you're wrong. So hosting a conference for them brings its own level of challenge. Now, the collegial nature of ombudsman conferences and this expo, I hope, will permit us an opportunity to not just learn, but for much needed fellowship and sharing and learning. The work of the ombudsman can be a very solitary affair. Ombudsmen work in confidence, and they keep their own counsel. And they are required to be scrupulous to guard against any appearance that they may be too friendly with anyone. And so one of the few times that we are able to fellowship in this way is when we have these conferences. And I must say that over the years that I have been an ombudsman, the fellowship has been enormous. Not only do you find that you make connections that you can take back home with you, there is something particularly gratifying at knowing that there is someone on the other end of the email or on the other side of the phone line who you can connect with. And even when we have issues and challenges and complaints and cases and investigations that seem like nothing like this has ever happened before in the world, when you speak to your colleagues, you find really and truly it has. And so I'm very, very excited. And it's been great seeing old friends from previous conferences, but also new ones. Now, as a daughter of the African diaspora, I am particularly happy to be here in Abuja, Nigeria, and on the African continent, the birthplace of humanity and the cradle of civilization and culture. And I bring you warm greetings from your colleagues in Bermuda and your colleagues in the Caribbean from the Caribbean Ombudsmen's Association, CAROA. I'm very pleased to have been asked by the President to stand in for her today. I know she very much wanted to attend, as did other colleagues. Also attending from our Caribbean region is from Jamaica, the Public Defender, Ms. Arlene Harrison Henry, and also, I believe, the Jamaican Political Ombudsman, Ms. Donna Parchman Brown, who I've not had the pleasure of meeting. I also extend greetings from your colleagues from the Institute of Latin American Ombudsman, under the presidency of Christina Ritchie, and represented today by their first vice president, who is my fellow panel member, Alba Martin of Curacao. And I also extend greetings on behalf of the IOE, Caribbean and Latin American region. I have seen, since I've been here, fellow regional president, Carolyn Zucconi, who is the regional president of the African region, and I acknowledge her. Now, one of the things that I have noticed as I've traveled around is ombudsmen seem really, really sober, really, really serious. Sometimes it looks like they're almost worried that if they laugh, people won't take them serious. And so I must confess, I laugh quite a lot. And I hope you take me serious when I do that. I don't think that we're supposed to take our work seriously, but I don't think we're supposed to take ourselves too seriously. So bear with me. Not only do ombudsmen not want to laugh too much, but they're very, very strict with their language. I don't think I've ever heard an ombudsman say they were happy. I heard them say they were pleased and they were thankful, but I've never heard one say they're happy. Maybe that's too much emotion for an ombudsman. But I'd like to break with that tradition here today, and I'd like to tell you that I am extremely happy and extremely excited to be here. I'd go one further. I'm delighted. And so this is a great occasion, and I hope that there will be many, many more. So I'm going to start now by the substantive part of my presentation. And in the time allocated, I ask that we consider together why effective complaint handling matters in the delivery of good public administration. I hope our consideration of this question together will be helpful, and we may find some insights together about the important responsibility of hearing complaints from the public about administration of public services. Earlier this year, I was having a conversation with someone, a communications expert, about the requirements for good communication and the requirement that government effectively communicate with their citizens, and the importance of being able to communicate on a better level. I must confess, one of the issues that I was arguing about is that nowadays, in the world of electronics, I'm concerned that governments and public authorities feel that if they've provided information on a website or they've sent something out, if they've provided information, that equals communication. This is a big concern for me, because what I find now is government saying things like, Well, we don't have to put that on the radio, or we don't have to put that announcement in the newspaper, because we put it on the government website. And there's a feeling of being quite satisfied with that, except that when you know that there is a significant part of your population that doesn't have access, then really that's not good communication. So this was the nature of the conversation I was having. And I was surprised when I heard the communications expert say, "What are you talking about? Why should people be encouraged to come forward with complaints?" She said, "People don't need to be talking about complaints. These are hard days. People ought to be encouraged to think positive, focus, and communicate on what's going right in their world, not emphasizing what's going wrong. That's depressing, talking about complaints. People should be lifted." And all of this attention by ombudsmen encouraging people to speak about complaints isn't good. Let's emphasize the good. Now, as an ombudsman, I couldn't believe my ears, because we delight in people coming forward to us and trusting our offices and our processes with the things that bother them. And the thought that people coming forward with the complaints was a bad thing was very difficult to take. But I was a little bit disappointed with myself, because I didn't feel that I gave the robust defense that you would expect from an ombudsman. I actually felt like I lost the argument. And I felt like I wasn't sufficiently prepared to explain that complaints have a positive side. And even though we have a connotation that complaints are bad, in the context of the ombudsman, they are not. Because we have learned that in any given society, a very small number of individuals who are aggrieved actually come forward with a complaint. And so when people entrust us that way, it's a good thing. Just before I came here, I saw this communications expert. We were collecting our lunch together, and I thought to myself, when I come back from this expo, I'm going to try it again. So this is my practice run with you to see if I'm any more persuasive, if I do any better before I take on the communication guru. Now, good governance is a term that ombudsmen use and think about all the time. And we know that that term started out as one that international organizations used to use to measure whether certain countries, so-called transitioning democracies, were maintaining responsibilities to their people. And they did this as compared with so-called successful countries in Europe and North America. Nowadays, all people, all countries, all governments are expected to practice good governance. It should have always been that way. But in addition to good governance, we have the associated requirement of good public administration. And I'm not really sure, as ombudsman, that I understand completely that distinction. But it seems to me that when we talk about good public administration, we're more often than not talking about what public servants do, the management of government operations, the carrying out of the services that government has committed to. And while the political arm, more often than not, is the one who I associate with good governance, they're accountable. Public service, less so. And so that is why I believe, respectfully, that it is so important that we do the job that we have been entrusted to do, because who else but an ombudsman, or I suppose through judicial review, a court, can hold the public service to account? And if we think about the challenges of courts, the expense, in my jurisdiction, if you try to bring a judicial review, you're not going to get too much change out of 75,000 US dollars. If you think about the backlog, if you think about the inflexibility, then it may be that judicial review is a remedy that most people can take up. Now, complaining is more than letting people get things off their chest. It's not enough that ombudsmen receive complaints. And it's not enough that there's complaint handling. The key is whether it is effective. And it is effective when there is accountability. It's not effective when public officials are permitted to give not only complainants, but ombudsmen runaround. I must say that in my jurisdiction, there hasn't been a lot of outright deniability, but very often we'll make a request for something and the authority says, yes, of course, no problem, we're very happy to provide that. And then 3 months later, you don't have it. Or you make a recommendation and you're overjoyed that the authority seems like they've taken it on. And 2 years later, it hasn't happened. And so when we talk about accountability, I think we have to be, as ombudsmen, we have to be vigilant. We have to build relationships. We have to engender our own personalities. We have to be our own authentic selves. But we have to also remember that we're called to be ombudsmen for a reason. And that is so that we can assist those in the jurisdictions that we serve to grapple with the pressures of this all-consuming bureaucracy. Okay. These days, even technocrats appear to be overwhelmed by parts of the system, and even millennials and Generation Xers who seem to know everything. Even the wealthy and the well-connected and the rich and the powerful seem overwhelmed by the power of bureaucracy. In our office, what we tried to concentrate on was to address matters that affected the vulnerable. And it was not easy very often to stay that line, because when you come from a very small jurisdiction and you are the only show in town, for want of a better term, it's difficult when you have limited resources to prioritize any group. But we prioritized inmates and the elderly and students with special needs. One of the big challenges in the work that we do is to be able to practice what we preach and walk it like we talk it. Most of us are challenged with resources. And there will probably never be an ombudsman's office that says, that's fine, I've got all the money I need, I've got all the staff I need, we're fine, we don't need any help. Everybody has those challenges. And it's a very difficult issue to deal with what justice and what fairness demands. Even the taking on for a small office of systemic investigations or own motion investigations. I mean, I must admit that I was a little envious when I saw many of my colleagues churning out the reports, but I also was aware that when I came into the post, it was a need to change the focus, because what we had was quite a lot of very good investigative reports and systemics, but we couldn't maintain that and be efficient in our complaint work. And so it required a choice. Okay, thank you. Poor lawyers, talk too much. So the work that we do is important, and the institution that we are part of is also important. And we have seen that it has changed and adapted. Its flexibility has made it an institution that is sought after. And it can be found in old countries and new countries, rich countries and poor countries. The Indian writer Suk said, you can see it in capitalist economies and socialist economies, unitary states and federal. You can see it everywhere where there's administrative law. And now we have seen the specialty ombudsman that again are dealing with a special need. So I think the challenge for us is to be mindful of the principles that are required in order for us to have effective complaint handling, but also we cannot get what I think a colleague of mine calls ruleitis. We can't get so stuck in doing the same thing over and over that we don't expand. And as a new ombudsman in my office, I know, and unfortunately with a legal background, we were so worried that we didn't want to overstep. But then you find that one of the reasons that you're the ombudsman is to push those boundaries in the interest of justice. So if I can try and find a good place to use up my last 2 minutes. I think it's worth saying that when we do our best work, we are, in fact, as ombudsmen, doing the very thing that we are challenging authorities to do. It's very easier for us to point at an authority or department and say, you know, you've got it wrong, you haven't done this, you're unresponsive, you're arbitrary. We have to concentrate very much to make sure that with our powers and our pledge and our constitutional responsibilities, that we ourselves, while we're pointing the finger and calling somebody inefficient, that we better make sure we're efficient. And we better make sure that the same tack that we take when we're dealing with authorities is that this should be a win-win. And complaints, nobody should come out of a complaint a loser. When we have effective complaint handling, everybody's supposed to win something, even if it's knowledge, even if it's relief. And I was shocked to find out when I was preparing for this that the word complaint actually comes from, bear with me, ma'am, the word complaint actually comes from the word lament. I had no idea. And lament is pain and hurt and crying, lamentation. And so very often when we are dealing with people, most times as a last resort, they're hurt. They've endured a lot. And I don't know if you've had the experience where you have a complainant who's been fighting the same issue for 25 years and they can't let it go. And that's because effective complaint handling for them didn't happen. So I would like to say in closing, if I may, that when our office opened, it opened to great promise. And we were very fortunate in 2006 to have a premier who actually believed in the ombudsman's office. It's not always that way. And what he said was, and I commend it to you, the Ombudsman Institution is a means to good governance. It provides oversight which makes good governance more than just words. Good governance is about what happens, not just what is said. It's how people are actually treated and feel in relation to their government. What makes governance good is when people feel valued, protected, and respected. This is an acknowledgement that good governance is connected to action by ombudsmen and others to help both the public and the public officials to do things right, correctly, and fairly, and where things are not right, to help to put it right. And so the work is difficult, but I encourage you that we stand together, committed in this very, very difficult struggle. There is, I believe, scriptures in the Bible, I confess I don't read it as much as I should, that we should not grow faint. And if we don't grow faint, we'll prevail in the end. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Pearson. We have listened to the speaker discuss effective complaint handling. We are in the age of social media. There's technology. How do we apply it in our work as ombudsmen? We also have people in our societies who have challenges, as she has pointed out. The physically challenged, the seniors, the other people who are not able to readily complain. How do we handle them? So thank you very much for the insights. We shall have questions from the audience after our second speaker. It's my pleasure now to introduce our second speaker, the Ombudsman of Botswana, Honorable Magona Sohle. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. If I didn't, blame the Public Protector of South Africa. She tutored me in this. So thank you very much. Please come to the podium and deliver your paper. You have 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Director. How many minutes? How many minutes? How many minutes? 20 minutes. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, 20 minutes is just too small. But anyway, I had written a very long paper, but I'll try to summarize it. Well, I've been asked to speak on the topic which says the expanding role and influence of the Ombudsman Institution, placing particular emphasis on the issues, challenges, and prospects of growth. Now, in this paper, I first of all tried to deal with the concept of ombudsman, try to trace it from its origins, the classical ombudsman, how it developed over the years, and explain its evolution into the modern concept of ombudsman that we have today, which has been adapted or adopted by many countries across the world. And in places like Africa, where we are, we could notice that we have adapted it to our own political, economic, and social conditions which are pertaining in our continent. And we can see now that we have a different model, not like the classical one, where now it's an institution with multiple mandates, functions, and so on. What I'm trying to show is that there's sufficient evidence of the existence of an ombudsman in civilizations, in ancient civilizations. You can trace it back as to the 221 BC in China, in Korea, during the Roman Empire, in Turkey, India, and Japan. But even then, even in those civilizations, its primary function was to monitor the exercise of power, governmental power, by state officials to ensure that it did not infringe on the rights of the citizens. And I'm arguing also that this concept existed in Africa as well. Because if you look at our societies, you'll find that there was always an individual or individuals who could easily interact with the rulers and the ordinary people. And these people, they played the role of an ombudsman in a number of ways in our traditional societies. Even in my society, Botswana, there was always the chief's uncle who would always be there to play such a role. Now in South Africa, I've read somewhere that the vendor community, there's a Makazi. Makazi, and for that matter, it was a woman. Makazi is a woman. And he was the link between the people and the power and the rulers. And he would always voice the concerns of the people to the rulers. So it was there. It has always been there. Now, of course, now the streets are the ones who are credited with establishing the institution as we know it today. And it emerged in Sweden, in the Scandinavian countries, but then it spread rapidly across the world in a sensation which I describe as ombudsmania. The booming of ombudsman all over the place. And it is there to offer alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to allow for the resolution of citizens' complaints against public officials. So for me, this scheme, the ombudsman scheme, it's a very, very important and significant feature of our legal systems everywhere you go in the world. It has developed to become a broad institution which has been used in various ways to address the citizens' concerns or the way in which they have been ruled by those who exercise governmental power. And I'm saying citizens, they deserve to have an effective means to redress against administrative decisions so as to guarantee respect for fundamental rights and freedoms and promote the rule of law. Now, you'll notice that after it has developed in the Scandinavian countries and we adopted it, even the International Bar Association in the 70s, they came up with a definition of an ombudsman. And from that definition, you can see that the ombudsman is described as an institution that has the core function of individual complaint handling, and that it is also concerned with improving government decision-making and exercises quality control over government administration. So now we have an ombudsman in the modern sense, the way we understand it, as coming back from that era. What is the role of the ombudsman? The ombudsman has various roles, but first and foremost, as I said earlier, it is to address individual grievances. It offers members of the public a cheaper, quicker, and overall a more accessible way to challenge governmental action as compared to bring an action, let's say through our courts. Its key role is to ensure accountability, which has been widely defined as the answerability for performance and obligation that the political office bearers and public officials have to give a satisfactory explanation to the public regarding the exercise of authority and resources entrusted to them. So in a way, its core role is to promote good public administration. Now, the third role that I have identified is that it promotes good governance, which encapsulates the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's economic and social resources. The Ombudsman institution plays an administrative oversight role by operating as a check on the executive branch of government and thereby strengthening democracy. The Ombudsman has an oversight role which ensures quality decision-making by public bodies, which in turn also contributes to good governance. So these are some of the roles that I've identified. And again, another important role that I think we lose sight of is that of building quality relationship between the government and the public. It is said that trust in government is crucial for both the legitimacy and efficacy of the political system. It functions as the glue that keeps the system together, and also is the oil that lubricates the policy machinery of government. So you can see that there are so many. These are the ones that I have just identified, but I'm sure my colleagues may have some that they can also talk about. And I'm saying in my paper that this ombudsman, as renewed, expanded, as I said, from the classical into the modern one, the one that has now developed, which has now also have been given a wide range of mandates. The scope of the mandates of the ombudsman have expanded from purely redressing maladministration by government officials or institutions to also considering other aspects, other issues, such as human rights, fight against corruption, environmental degradation, and so on and so forth. Now, we can see also that even in our program that we have for the whole of this week, we shall be touching on those issues of human rights, how the Ombudsman contributes to the promotion and protection of human rights, how he fights against corruption, how they protect the environment, and so on. Now, the respect for human rights is now seen as an intrinsic element of good public administration. If there's any public administration that does not respect, that does not, or that in its actions infringes on the fundamental rights or human rights of the people, it's not a good government. It's not a good administration. That is the bottom line. So a key feature of this new model is the inclusion of multiple mandates in a single ombudsman institution and the development of additional roles and responsibilities. Examples, as I've said, are those of anti-corruption, human rights, and so on and so forth. But recently, there have been more recent developments which include the creation of specialized ombudsman institutions, such as the Children's Ombudsman, and sector-specific ombudsmen such as police ombudsman, military ombudsman, financial services ombudsman, judicial ombudsman. So the scope is getting wider and wider. Now, this growth, in my view, ladies and gentlemen, is a demonstration of the adaptability of to the changing times, and also it will ensure the relevance, the continued relevance of our institution, the Ombudsman, because it's like a chameleon. In one situation, it takes it takes a certain color, and in another one, it goes this way. So you keep on adding so many functions, so many mandates, and it really serves us in all our settings. We adapt it to our socio-political and political and economic conditions. Now, you can see that the advantage of using the Ombudsman in this manner is that as a high-profile national institution, it is potentially better able to resist proper pressure from the executive than other bodies, and is thus better placed to undertake meaningful investigations and be effective in the execution of the given mandate. It is also, Ombudsman Institution is renowned for its objectivity in executing its mandate. And this has enabled members of the public to trust it and use it as an obvious point of contact for reporting wrongdoing by government officials. The confidentiality of its procedures also gives the office an added advantage, particularly as this assists in countering possible intimidation of complainants. By its nature, the Ombudsman also provides free services to the citizens and is easily accessible, hence is able to remedy the injustices occasioned to complainants. Justice in this manner, colleagues, can be speedily and freely dispensed to ordinary members of the public. Something which we cannot say or guarantee when we go through the court systems. So the flexibility and informality of the Ombudsman institution and its ability to undertake investigations on its own initiative play a critical role in assisting the citizens to enforce their rights. So we can see that this institution is at the core of justice, dispensing justice, ensuring the protection of rights, and so on and so forth. So it has really been able to stand the test of time. It has really been able to deliver to our people. 2 minutes, oh my God. I think I should now speed up. Let me go to the challenges, Madam Director. Despite all these good things that I've said about the Ombudsman, though of course there are challenges which are facing the institutions. Now, for me, I will just pick two. There's the issue of independence. There's also the issue of interference, political interference. With regard to independence, in as much as that has been prescribed in our constitutions, in our legislations, that we are independent, but sometimes it's not in reality, it's not the case. It may be on paper, but in reality it's not the case. So generally, for me, the Ombudsman institutions are still grappling with issues of independence. And it's a matter that has to be dealt with, because in as much as the executive, they give with independence, but still they are still loath to let you completely free and do your work without yourself looking behind your back. So there's also this problem of perception. Generally our public, they perceive us to be not really independent, because maybe for one reason or another, you find that in certain situations, like in my country, the Office of Ombudsman is under the Office of the President. We may have operational independence in terms of the law, but the fact that you are still under a ministry which gives you the resources, which goes to Parliament to ask for your budget, and you have to give the reports to them and so on and so forth. To them, it says, you are not totally independent. There's also issue of political interference. Case of political influence and interference in the operations of the most ombudsman offices has been recorded. Political influence or interference manifests itself in many ways, such as where those in political power obstruct the ombudsman in his investigations, or ignore, or challenge, or resist his reports or decisions. Well, we know, we've been reading a lot about what is happening in South Africa with regard to the reports of the public protector, where at every turn, those who have been investigated against for one reason or another want to take her reports for review. And that has really created a challenge for her, because if you ask yourself, if I have to start investigating, am I going to be challenged? Is my report going to be accepted? Am I going to be taken to court? And it has even made matters worse, where even a court has now said she must pay from her pocket the costs of litigation. It's not her who brought the matter to court, it's somebody else. So I think these issues, they are now becoming a problem. They will have to be addressed one way or another and see how we could come to solutions. In certain instances, colleagues, there is just no political will to establish an efficient and effective office. But rather, what we do in our countries is to have a ceremonial office that exists for the purpose of conforming or ticking the box, conforming to international requirements. There's another challenge of insufficient funding. We don't get adequate funding, therefore we cannot do our work. There's a problem of tenure of office of the ombudsman. The appointment, as far as I'm concerned, of the ombudsman must be accompanied by security of tenure and appropriate conditions of service. The conditions of service for an ombudsman should be equivalent to those of a judge of the courts, of the high courts or the Supreme Courts. something that is not happening in many jurisdictions, Madam Chair. The other problem is a problem of public perception, which I've raised earlier. The Office of the Ombudsman is as effective as the people in the community view it. Therefore, if the public perceive the office as ineffective, the conclusion would be that it is indeed ineffective, even if in reality the contrary may be true. So this negative public perception poses a challenge for the Office of the Ombudsman. There's also the problem regarding the non-responsive culture by government agencies. The tendency by government departments not to support the Office of the Ombudsman and their failure to expeditiously respond to Ombudsman's inquiries and or to give substantive responses to the inquiries presents a huge challenge to the effective and efficient execution of Ombudsman mandate. Now, these are challenges, Madam. Now, there's also a challenge with regard to what I call continued relevance. In my view, the biggest challenge facing Ombudsman institution is to maintain continued relevance by being responsive to the ever-growing demands for swift and technologically savvy methods of dispute resolution and to use scanty resources to best effect. That is a problem. If you don't really come up with better methods of dispute resolution, we might find ourselves in that problem of being not relevant. We also have to account. We can't be calling for others to account when ourselves we don't account. It's very, very important that we account. In my view, the responsibility to account for the operations and be a model of good administrative behavior. Commitment by the Ombudsman to conduct the operations in a more credible manner cannot be overemphasized if the institution is to remain relevant. Madam, I've also, in my paper, talked about prospects for growth. I won't go there. There's no time. I will just want to say that in conclusion, prospects for growth, it's relevant. All it needs is to always adapt, continuously adapt, and come up with new ways of addressing whatever emerging challenges may come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Ombudsman of Botswana. He graduated from the University of Botswana with an LLB, 1987. He was awarded a master's degree from the University College of London in 1996 and took office from his predecessor, Ms. Festina Bakwena, on 1st June 2016. He's also a OMA Regional Coordinator for Southern Africa. He is a distinguished legal practitioner and a long-serving public officer who has extensive experience in the field of human rights. Before becoming Principal State Counsel in the Attorney General's Chambers in 1994, the Honorable Ombudsman was a member of the Ceasefire Commission of the United Nations Mission in Mozambique. Between 2000 and 2003, he acted as legal advisor to the former President of Botswana, Sir Ketumilo Masire, who was then the facilitator of the Inter-Congolese Dialogue, which facilitated negotiations for a new political dispensation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ombudsman Maguna Sotle has also served as the Chief State Counsel in the Attorney General's Chambers 2003 to 2005. Between 2005 and 2007, he held the role of Deputy Permanent Secretary, Administration in the Office of the President, where he provided strategic leadership in the management and coordination of corporate services. From 2007 onward until his current appointment as Ombudsman, he served as Secretary for Defense, Justice and Security in the Ministry of Defense, Justice and Security. He also oversees Botswana's participation in the United Nations Human Rights Council and has been in charge of Botswana's refugee program. So this is the background of our second speaker. As you can see, he discussed the expanding role of the Ombudsman And you can see from his bio that he has served in different capacities, even at international level, which makes him very overqualified for the office of Ombudsman. I'm afraid we always run out of time, but from his paper, he has discussed the challenges, the prospects, but he has also left us with hope that there is hope for expansion as long as the Ombudsman and all those in allied offices keep on working hard in spite of the challenges that they face. Because most of the challenges are quite common. The political leadership may not be willing to support the work of the Ombudsman, and in most of our governments, it's through the budget. They limit the budget to try and make the Ombudsman less effective. But from the discussion by the Botswana Ombudsman, we have observed that there are many ways in which we can deal with these challenges by being effective. Now, before we call upon our last two speakers, we are opening the floor for discussions and questions for the first two presenters. So if our audience, distinguished attendees, have got questions, observations on the two papers that have been presented, this is the time. We have about 20 minutes to spend on this. So please, if you have questions, observations from the two papers presented, this is the time to ask them and discuss whatever issues have been raised. Yes, sir? Please, yes. I'm wondering whether we have somebody to take the mic to the people who are discussing. Thank you.
My name is Barrister Willie Amade. I'm a Federal Commissioner, Public Complaints Commission, representing Imo State, Nigeria. I have been wondering if we have solution to the challenges facing so many jurisdictions about enforcement of our recommendations, particularly those jurisdictions that do not have prosecutorial powers. How do you think jurisdictions can overcome these challenges? Thank you.
I'll call upon the two speakers. Ms. Pearson, you heard the question. Your comments? Yes.
I'm going to try my best to answer that. And if I miss the mark, just take me back and I'll try again. One of the biggest issues that we hear about our institution is that it doesn't have enforcement powers. And it is often presented as a weakness. But in fact, from my way of thinking, it's actually a strength. Because if we had enforcement powers, the equivalent of a court, guess what? You think you're busy now? We'd be in court every day. We wouldn't get an opportunity to do any complaint handling. And so I believe the key is to try and find means in which we can be more effective, not just at complaint handling, but at persuasion on our recommendations. And that may mean a number of things. One of the things it may mean is looking for allies, like other accountability or other integrity officers. It may require utilization of the press. It may involve more work and outreach on our part to demonstrate for the members of the public how important their ombudsman is, and so that they become advocates for us. It may also require that we build our relationships with the officials and those who have those powers. Because at the end of the day, it seems to me, as an ombudsman, the greatest tool that we have, our strongest power, is our power of persuasion. And so it falls on us primarily to make sure that we are educating those people who we need to educate in order to make a better case. Sometimes you're going to have officials who just don't want to do it. And then we may have to up the ante. So most of us have the power to do special reports. And it's a question of selling it. Not that it's the ombudsman's will, but that we're acting in the best interest of the society and making ourselves, demonstrating our value. I think, to me, I don't know if I've answered you, but that's the key, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. The Ombudsman of Botswana, maybe from a different angle, to add something to answer the same question.
Thank you, Madam. No, I agree with my colleague. But at least from my perspective, I think I find the problem being the parliament, our parliament. Because I thought, my understanding was that an ombudsman is doing this. This is a delegated responsibility from parliament. You are a creation of parliament. And if parliament does not take its role seriously by looking at your reports and ensuring that those who are not implementing your recommendations are called to account, at least to account why they are not doing that. I mean, for me, that will go a long way. Because especially where you are a classical ombudsman, where you are not the one with this other mandates. If you are looking at administrative justice, and you are doing that, issues of maladministration, and you make reports, you merely make recommendations, and it has to be like that. But the reports, if they are not implemented, Parliament must play its role. They must call these people to account why they are not doing that, and if they are found not to be doing that deliberately, they must be censored. Action should be taken. That's how I look at it myself. Because I'm worried you giving a classical ombudsman those powers of enforcement, you are bringing it into another area. That's why I was saying there's this issue now of people taking you to court. You're going to, as you said, you're going to spend more time in courts defending your reports. And then what happens? Your work, your proper work of investigations will suffer. One. Secondly, where do you get the funding from to go to court? The very same government that is not giving you enough resources, the little bit that you have, now you'll be defending in court, hiring counsel. Sometimes costs are ordered against you. I mean, we have to, if we stick to that classical ombudsman, let then all organs, all institutions play their part. And principally, primarily for me, Parliament should do its work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I had seen another hand. Yes, please. Maybe it would help us if the people posing questions could introduce themselves, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Prince Samben Wosu. I'm the Federal Commissioner for Anambra State, Public Complaints Commission, Nigeria. My question, or the question I wanted to ask, he has touched it a little, but I must ask. I said, in the course of getting to the root of, because the ombudsman here is like, can I say, we just resolve issues between two people. But most times, you might have gone on the side, on the spot. They must have brought all the witnesses, At a point, the respondent is seeing that you are getting to the root of it. He will quickly go to court. And the next thing, they will serve you a motion from court that they're already in court and you have to stop. So I don't know. It's a serious cog in the wheel, and this is food dragging the speediness that is required in getting to administrative justice in Nigeria here. So that's a major predicament we have. I don't know if there's any idea you can suggest to us to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Preempting complaint solution by the Ombudsman by going to court. That's the essence of the question. Ms. Pierman? The question was, can you just repeat the question for the two speakers, please? Annie?
Prince Samben Mosu is the Federal Commissioner representing Anambra in the Public Complaints Commission, Nigeria. Thank you.
I'm probably the least qualified person in this whole compound to answer that question, but I'll give it a shot. In my jurisdiction, the only way that we can be challenged at law is by judicial review. Are you talking about something distinct from judicial review? Okay. So I don't have anything useful to add, but I believe it is obvious to everyone that you can completely leave and render an ombudsman completely useless if you have them in court. Not only because of resources and time, but it seems to me that the whole purpose of what we do is as an alternative to court. That's what we're meant not to be. And so if we now find ourselves drugged before the courts, I think it impacts our own gravitas and it impacts our own integrity. And I know I said it a little bit before, and I can't judge your circumstances, and I don't know, the actual reference that you may be raising, so I can't speak intelligently on that. But I do believe that government officials, whether they are in the legal side or in the administrative side, don't like looking bad in front of their constituents. They don't like that. And so that, if I can follow on, and at the risk of repeating myself, I think it's really important for us as alternative dispute resolvers to use all the powers that we marshal and all the expertise that we have to do everything that we can, short of giving up our integrity, to marshal means to avoid that. Even as I said, the press is a great resource, because remember, we're meant to be shining the light, and we're not doing very well if we can't manage to shine the light on things that are unfair to us. We also, I think, would undermine our integrities with the people who we're supposed to be helping. When they say, my goodness, they got the ombudsman in court again? So I'm sorry I can't be more specific.
Honorable Ombudsman from Botswana, some highlight? Nothing to say, okay. I think I saw a hand there in that direction. Is there, yes please, sir? Please introduce yourself and give us the question.
My name is Alhaji Saad Jalingo, Director Investigation, Yobe State. Pertaining recommendation in Nigeria, we experience when recommendation is made without case conference between a complainer and respondent, definitely you will have a problem. But in a situation whereby the complainant is sitting, respondent is there. As far as unbiased investigation is made, present the reality. You point out the truth to the respondent where the lapses are there. Definitely, the respondent will accept, either by mistake or oversight. Justice was not applied. The consent must be there. Once the respondent consented to the mistake, automatically he will accept the recommendation. In another way, if the complainant is found guilty, he rushed to the commission. Clearly show him, you have violated that law, and that law, where is the merit? Point him, show him the law. He will consent. The recommendation will be accepted. And pertaining the court, I am happy with the speaker from Botswana. If I will quote him right, he said, qualitative relationship between government and people. That is the responsibility of Ombudsman. If there is qualitative relationship, automatically the head of service will be at your door. If any organization, any agents refuse to implement your recommendation, the heads of service shall come into the aids. Pertaining the courts, we said Public Complaint Commission is one of the disciplinary organizations across the world. If somebody will rush to the court, well, the case in Public Complaint Commission, the next thing, the ombudsman will write to the registrar. This case is before the Public Complaint Commission. And the Constitution said, if the case is before the Public Complaint Commission, no other authority will intervene. After the resolution, if somebody is not happy, we'll go into the higher level. Finally, listeners, we said a good governance would have high productivity of human rights. If it is that good governance, I believe there shall be no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the exposition. Maybe the Ombudsman of Botswana can add one or two words. Yes? All right. Okay, it has been answered, yes. Any other questions before we call upon our last two speakers? Madam Public Protector of Zambia, I thought I saw your hand. Okay, yes, thank you. We shall now move on to our third speaker, who is Alba Martin, former Ombudsman of Curaçao and former president of their association. The paper will be The Ombudsman in Latin America, Adaptation and Perspectives of a Changing Institution. Ms. Martin, Alba Martin, studied law at the University of the Netherlands until in 1982 and began her career in January 1983 as a legal advisor of the island territory of Curaçao. She studied with success postgraduate studies in management in California and the good governance courses in Curaçao. She obtained several certificates in the field of corporates, international and labor law, management skills, investigative techniques, leadership training, communication, and computer skills. As far as her work experience is concerned, she studied in 1983 as legal advisor to the territory of Curaçao. She took an oath as a lawyer in 1984 and represented the government of the island territory of Curaçao and the government of the former Netherlands until 1996. After that, she was appointed Acting Director General and Personnel Affairs of the Netherlands Antilles. 1992 to 98, she was appointed Director of Personnel Affairs in the Netherlands Antilles. 98 to 2002, she worked as the Senior Legal Advisor to the Minister of Justice. In 2000, she was appointed to monitor the prisons after receiving a special training to act in this capacity. 2000, she was representative of the government of the Netherlands Antilles in the United Nations and in Geneva, where she represented efforts of the government to redress the situation in the prison to the Committee Against Torture. In 2002 to 2004, she was Senior Legal Advisor to the ABN AMRO Trust Curaçao. In 2004 to 2009, she acted as Ombudsman for Curaçao. 2009 to 2015, Ombudsman of Curaçao. In 2015 to 2017, she was President of Princess Wilhelmina Funds Foundation. In 2017, until she became main advisor of the Minister of Health, Environment, and Nature of Curaçao. She has been a lecturer at various institutions, and she also presented papers in the Mexico City, in Mexico, and in Colombia, and Buenos Aires, in Argentina, and in Turin, in Italy. Past executive positions, she has been Executive Secretary of the Supervisory Board of the Organization for the Funding of Poverty Projects, AMFO, that is 2007 to 2014. She has been President of the Council of the Caribbean Ombudsman Association, 2013 to 2015. She has been President of the Caribbean Administration Foundation, 2014 to 2015. Executive Secretary, 2015, of the Board of Rotary Club, Curaçao. And she has been President of the Princess Wilhelmina Fund Foundation, 2015 to 2018. The current executive position, since 2015, she has been Director for the region of the Caribbean of the Institute of Latin American Ombudsman and top advisor for the Minister of Health, Environment, and Nature of Curaçao since August 2017. The International Relations Office of the Ombudsman of Curaçao, during her tenure, has signed cooperative agreements with the Ombudsman of Santa Fe, Argentina, and another one with the Latin American Ombudsman, and another one with, where she became observer of the Federation of Ibo-American Ombudsman. In 2012, they also signed a cooperation agreement with National Human Rights Committee of Mexico. 2013, the office also became a voting member of the International Ombud Institute. I'm particularly interested in the fact that her office has been signing these agreements with other institutions in her region and outside her region, which I'm beginning to believe that if the Ombudsman can have this type of jurisdiction to sign cooperative agreements, it would even make the Ombudsman office much stronger. I have the pleasure to call Ms. Alba Martin to give her presentation. Please welcome her.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Protocol has been observed, so I can refrain from that. What I will try to do today is go with you on a roadmap of what the Ombudsman of Latin America is all about. Latin America is generally understood to consist of the entire continent of South America in addition to Mexico, Central America, and the islands of the Caribbean whose inhabitants speak a Romance language, that would be Spanish or French. Latin America's wealth is multicultural, multi-religious, polyglot, and idealistic, gives rise to all kinds of disputes and discussions where inequalities play a fundamental role in its existence. Latin America was characterized for many decades by revolutions, coups, and civil wars. These have created excesses in regimes since the beginning of the last century, but particularly in the 1950s and the 1960s. The various political and economic metamorphoses of Latin American countries had a direct impact on their stability, in their people, and their communities. These processes were accompanied by a lot of blood and no legitimacy. These processes prevented an early development of the democracy. The crisis of institutional credibility in Latin America has been accompanied by a process of corruption that accelerated in the 1980s with the implementation of neoliberal economic system. The result created an even widening inequality between the classes, such as those of indigenous people in various parts of the continent, workers in industrial districts and border corridors, and those of the LGBT community. Against this background, a social bridge between the state and the people, which is legitimized by the established powers and which has the confidence of the citizen, is imperative. The European figure of the European Ombudsman, for this reason, may be inert, distant to the Latin American reality. Although Jewish, the endowment of independence, and autonomy and legal force as set out in the Paris Principles are sufficient for a model of human rights defender. However, the particular characteristics of Latin America requires public defenders, at least in this day and age, of people committed to the integral defense of the people and broad moral solvency and with a capacity to be engulfed in the reality of hope that represent their figure and their person. According to Dr. Carlos Constella, Latin America introduced this figure of the ombudsman in the mid-1980s, and mainly since the 90s, this figure, but with other names, and also with other contents. The Iberian model, established in the Constitution of Portugal in 1976 and Spain in 1978, was followed, which assigned to this judiciary a mandate whose central object is the protection of human rights. The implementation of an ombudsman office in Spain and even its autonomous regions was a consequence of the country's transition to democracy. And we see a relatively comparable process regarding the implementation of this institution in different Latin American countries. Indeed, during the process, the Spanish model was a constant point of reference, despite the major differences in their respective social and political context. Moreover, in some countries, the process involved in adopting this institution was quite long and nearly always with important local peculiarities. However, every case in Latin America shares a common emphasis on fundamental rights, with administrative control taking a backseat, although they all have this second mandate as well. In various Latin American countries, the implementation of an ombudsman or similar figure has come out of a constitutional reform. The attributes of the classical European ombudsman will be partly preserved, but adopting others which take him away from it, far beyond his primary mission of defending human rights. Its absolute independence from the parliament that appoints it, its mandate for pre-established periods outside the vote of confidence of the legislative majorities, the possibility of appealing for unconstitutionality and protection, and at least throughout South America, the Dominican Republic, Panama, and partly Costa Rica, its name, Defender of the People, that onomastic that relates with the classic Mediterranean tradition of Romanesque root. The ombudsman identified with the Scandinavian ombudsman for three important reasons that do not go beyond being instrumental. One, because of its status as an independent supervisory body, external to the administration, which received no instruction from anyone or even from the person who appointed it. Second, for his parliamentary appointment through qualification majorities, and for lacking positive power. They are attributes of great significance, to the point that the lack of any of them would disfigure their institutional nature. The Latin American Ombudsman has an identity that assimilates him with the Scandinavian Ombudsman, or more generically with the European Ombudsman. It is similar, has technical similarities, but it is not of its lineage and does not share its legal institutional nature. The Ombudsman has still diffuse profiles, missions that are questions and objectives conditioned for reasons that are far from the ethical invocation that inspires his creation. According to Dr. Constella, it is depending on the interpretation of his nature, the content of his action, and the scope of the effects of his actions. We thus affirm that the classic model of the Scandinavian Ombudsman, and more generically speaking, the European Ombudsman, does not define, at least in Latin America, the profile and competences of the Ombudsman. Even less so what society expects of him, which is not little, because this determined his commitment. The process of creating and incorporating the institution of the Ombudsman in the Latin American model legal systems dates from the decade that just ended, when the so-called transition to democracy began, at the same time that the Cold War, the bipolar world, and the doctrine of national security, which dominates the region during practically the entire second half of the 20th century, were coming to an end. The figure of the Ombudsman can be seen as evidence of this change, because until recently, the nations of the region lacked institutions to supervise the performance of government employees with respect to human rights. The phenomenon of the expansion of the Ombudsman can be said to be an answer to an institutional weakness in some countries and to the serious violations of human rights committed during the military dictatorships and the internal conflicts that afflicted Latin America in the 1970s and 80s, which has led to an emphasis on human rights by the Ombudsman. The Mexican jurist Jorge Madrazo described the Latin America prototype as the Criollo Ombudsman. The Latin American Ombudsman, as explained, is based on the Swedish and Spanish models and has evolved accordingly to the needs of each country of Latin America in an attempt to respond to the demands of the people who need a mechanism to control the abuses of the authorities and private individuals. Although this figure is based on previously existing models, the Latin American model tied to the constitutional development of the transition to democracy and the end of authoritarian regimes adds two fundamental elements to the classic figure. On the one hand, explicit priority is given to the priority of human rights without relinquishing control of acts of public administration that are in violation of the law. On the other hand, it may transfer files in the public ministry so that the latter can initiate, when appropriate, a criminal prosecution. The Ombudsman also has promotional and educational functions. In Latin America, the Ombudsman is often more effective than the courts in protecting human rights and also has an important complementary role in the resolutions of conflicts. The Office of the Ombudsman is able to do so because of its particular characteristics, such as not being subject to formalities or legal restrictions for the handling of cases of violations of human rights, being an organization that does not charge a fee, and being independent of other states' bodies. According to Lorena Fiolo, the Office of the Ombudsman has bodies that oversee the activities of the state and promote and supervise compliance of human rights, have a fundamental role to play in furthering democracy. The Ombudsman must be creative and interpret his mandate as broadly as possible. The Ombudsman in Latin America is a democratic figure who is capable of mediating social conflicts and promoting democratic standards. There are occasions in which achieving peace, transparency in elections, the search for truth, and reconciliation, and the very stabilization of the processes involved in the transition to democracy have called for the Ombudsman to be an interlocutor of democratic aspirations. The staff of the offices of the Ombudsman must have an adequate level of preparation and training. Likewise, they should have competitive salaries and stabilities in the workplace. The idea around the introduction of the figure of the Ombudsman in Latin America was promoted by different sectors and in a significant way by the Latin American Ombudsman Institute, whose name would later be complemented with that of Defensoría del Pueblo, placing the emphasis on the institution as a whole, considering it broader and more representative than that of the individual occupant of the role of the Ombudsman. As well, in the plurality and variety of organisms, however, the Institute is known by its acronym of always ILO. This is the institution I represent. The role of the ILO was significant in the creation of the Ombudsman offices of Argentina, Bolivia, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, and Venezuela. Know that in all these cases, and only in them, they are called Defense Council Ombudsman or Defensor del Pueblo. The project to establish the figure of the Ombudsman in Latin America countries were largely satisfied. Only Chile and Brazil do not have this figure, although in Brazil, partially substitute institutions have been introduced. The ILO was founded, as it is known, in 1983. Those who created it thought that it was necessary to strengthen the instruments of representative democracy. Very plagued by repeated failures throughout Latin America, by invigorating control institute and facilitating access by citizens to the complaint and to the maladministration claim. For this purpose, the figure of the Ombudsman of Scandinavian origin was ideal. These founding aspirations were soon corrected in the light of two facts: the limitation imposed on those who wanted to express these complaints and claims, and second, the limitation imposed on those who wanted to express, the consideration of its legal nature, which made the Ombudsman in its European version little more than a palimpsest in our reality. Palimpsest is it's a document that you overwrite when you don't agree with it. The ILO, an ILO colloquium held in Buenos Aires in '85 would help modify that legal and institutional interpretation, and thus began to think of the Ombudsman as an institution more connected to the Ombudsman in the Portuguese Constitution and Spanish Constitution. The new interpretation had an early impact on the very development of the ILO. It began to be considered a Creole version of this institute that would facilitate not only its establishment in the region, but also in its dissemination quite quickly, certainly during the 90s, with the exception of Brazil and Chile, as I already said. It was understood that the greatest possibility for promoting the defenders of the people should be the taking into account of the specific realities of each country, which is why the national chapters were created. This is before these countries had an ombudsman. In this way, with the challenge of facing commitments in reality very different from the European ones, a reliable institution was developed which soon gained credit among the population in many places in our long continent. However, by its composition, the ILO did not have an organic function as idealized by the founders. In general, it felt that its objectives were met when an ombudsman was created in the different countries. In reality, this meant an almost irreversible weakening for the national chapters, with the exception of Chile, who did not up to today succeeded in getting an ombudsman established. Notwithstanding the strong commitment of the members of Chile, they could not achieve this. From then on, the objective of the ILO were to sustain its own growth while supporting the action of the defenders of the people. Since 2007, in the Mendoza Assembly, ILO actions are reformulated through a representation on its continent, strengthening its internal functioning and new international paradigm. The process of growth and development of the ILO created the necessity to initiate a new phase. This phase began in 2007 and reaches today with significant progress. We have registered more than 100 partners belonging to 19 countries. Since 2012, we have held our annual assemblies in different Latin American cities like Valparaiso, Mexico City, Cali, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, Montevideo, Lima, and the last one in El Salvador. At the same time as colloquiums, seminars, conferences in so many other cities, including in Europe, Torino, were held. We published the magazine Ephros, the only publication dedicated to studies on the Ombudsman and similar institutions around the world. We carry out training courses, sponsor meetings around the roles and subjects that are typical of the defenders of the people. Please bear in mind that the Ombudsman of Latin America has the second mandate, and that is to teach the people about human rights. Most of the Ombudsman offices in Latin America also has a school or a training center where the locals could go and get all the information they need and training necessary to know what their rights are and how they have to go about it to obtain it. We have rehearsed the creation of the thematic directories, some of which have fully fulfilled their objectives and others have not. We support to the best of our ability the action of the Caribbean Ombudsman Association and promote the affiliation of ombudsmen to the Vienna-based International Ombudsman Institute, IOE. We have supported the FIO projects and activities. FIO is the Federation for Ibero-American Ombudsmen. One of our greatest achievements has been the establishing of a chair for the study of the Institute of Ombudsmen in the curriculum of law of the National University of Cordoba. So in this university, students that are in the law faculty can study what it is to what the Ombudsman Institution is about and how you go about to become an effective ombudsman or someone who works there. This growth process and development of the ILO raised the need to start a new phase with a 4-year plan. These ideas that germinated after 2018 in the Lima Assembly materialized in a committee coordinated by our Secretary General. This new phase will be aimed at ensuring that support for ombudsmen achieves effective degree of influence on regional, national, and local agendas and policies in both human rights and internal design of the non-judicial institutions for the protection of human rights, recognizing that today these institutions are the new framework for contributing to sustainable development, consisting of the 17 goals that must be met by 2030 and are aimed at all actors on the planet who have been called to action to contribute to these global goals. In this new framework, the ombudsmen have a decisive role, and it is essential that they participate actively in their achievement as key actors in the public agenda of issues that require the development of public policies to take action to end the world's major problems such as ending poverty and inequality, achieving gender equality, and access for all to decent work, facilitating access to health services and adequate education, protect the environment, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. In order to affirm the objective proposed in the action plan, it will also be necessary to make progress in considering issues that permanently increase the catalog of social requirements by working on them in a specific way. while carrying forward an inclusive task that allows such institution to be identified beyond the characteristic and denomination without giving up the urgent need for political independence and financial and administrative autonomy. And in conclusion, I would like to say, in order to affirm the objective proposed in the action plan, it will also be necessary to make progress in considering issues that permanently increase the catalog of social requirements by working on them in a specific way while carrying forward an inclusive task that allows such institutions to be identified beyond their characteristic and denomination, and without giving up the urgent need for political independence and financial and administrative autonomy. ILO recognizes on an equal footing the specialized defenders like universities advocate, ouvidorias, ombudsmen in general from the public sector. Finally, intensify the means for effective integration of our Caribbean partners as part of the region in shares with Latin America. The presentation of this plan was made in conjunction with a change of ILO authorities. The Assembly decided to appoint for the first time a woman in the position of President of ILO, which my colleague Victoria already mentioned. That would be Christina Rish Ayub, while at the same time staffing the board of directors of ILO with a majority of women. This is a gender-based decision that is at the same time generational. You cannot separate our institute from the development in Latin America because the ILO has always been there from the start, helping all the countries to establish their office and also to help them progress and keep developing. And this we do by all the things I mentioned, a lot of training in every country, creating a chapter, helping these institutions with whatever they need. And we are now in the progress, as my colleague here, Ms. Victoria, to try to strengthen our bonds with the Caribbean so that together we can learn from each other and share our experiences. I thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation with a very different perspective in the way, in the manner the Office of Ombudsman is able to work with other institutions, even across their own borders with other countries, and also support and assist the formation and the operations of similar offices and ombudsman institutions in their region. That is a very welcome development for the Office of Ombudsman. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Ombudsman for Burundi, Honorable Eduardo Nduimana, as our fourth speaker. He graduated from the University of Burundi, Faculty of Law in 1993. He is a father of 7 children. He held positions in his country as legal advisor of the APRO service in Burundi, 1993 to 1994. 1994 to 1996, he was deputy prosecutor of Burundi. In 1996 to 2004, public prosecutor of Kirundo. Before that, he was inspector of justice. In 2005 to 2007, he was senior legal and administrative advisor of the Senate. 2007 to 2008, he was secretary general of the Senate. 2008 to 2009, governor of the province of Kayanza. In 2009 to 2015, he was Minister of the Interior. And in 2015 to 2016, Member of Parliament, Second Vice President of the National Assembly. He became Ombudsman of Burundi in November in 2016. So there we are with an ombudsman who has held offices in the government and important offices in the government, and also been a member of parliament. So you're most welcome, Honorable Nduimana, so that we can learn from you on how you are piloting the office of Ombudsman in Burundi with such a rich experience. You are on the floor.
Je vous regarde tous et je m'excuse de vous demander de faire un exercice et mettre les écouteurs. Parce que après Doris exposer en anglais, je vais devoir peut-être exprimer ce que les autres ont déjà dit, cette fois-ci en français. Je dis ce que les autres ont déjà dit parce que l'exposé dont il m'a été demandé de faire s'intitule « Le rôle croissant et l'influence de l'ombudsman, enjeux, défis et perspectives ». En anglais, je crois que mon collègue et ami Augustine, ombudsman du Botswana, a déjà fait le même exposé, « The Expanding Role and the Influence of the Ombudsman, Issues, Challenges and Prospects ». Vous comprenez que peut-être que les organisateurs ont voulu que nous parlions d'une même matière, mais dans des langues différentes. Mais je vais essayer d'insister sur ce qu'il n'a pas dit. Je vais me focaliser plutôt sur certains aspects africains en ce qui concerne ce rôle croissant de nos institutions, les défis et les perspectives. Je propose un petit plan. Je vais d'abord faire une petite introduction. Dans l'introduction, je vais revenir sur le contexte de ce grand événement qui nous réunit aujourd'hui, cette exposition internationale. Et je vais également revenir sur l'institution de l'Ombudsman qui est devenue planétaire. Et comme vous le constatez ici, nous sommes venus de tous les coins du monde. Et je veux aussi insister sur notre dénominateur commun, malgré les appellations qui sont multiples. Et je vais également faire un point sur le rôle croissant et l'évolution de l'institution de l'Ombudsman. Je vais parler des défis de nos institutions avant de conclure. Et je vais y aller très rapidement parce que, comme je le disais, mon ami avait déjà exploré pas mal de points. D'abord, en termes de contexte de l'exposition, je crois que cette exposition des ombudsman et médiateurs est une occasion royale pour les membres ombudsman venus de tous les coins du monde et pour échanger sur nos différentes expériences, échanger sur nos différents défis. Il est vrai que nous avons chaque fois eu les occasions de nous rencontrer dans différents forats, notamment au sein de la OMA, Association des ombudsman et médiateurs africains. Nous avons notre organisation. Il y a l'organisation des ombudsman des pays musulmans. Il y a l'organisation des ombudsman des pays francophones. Il y a pas mal d'organisations qui réunissent les ombudsman. Mais aujourd'hui, je crois que c'est vraiment une unique occasion de pouvoir nous rencontrer comme ombudsman venus de tous les coins du monde pour partager nos expériences. Et je salue à haute voix ceux qui ont initié cette initiative et ceux qui ont, aux yeux du monde, que l'institution d'ombudsman médiateur est devenue planétaire et que surtout en Afrique, parce que je regarde les présences ici, je crois que l'Afrique est tellement représentée et que l'Afrique regorge de beaucoup de ressources humaines en termes d'institutions de médiation. Et ces institutions, malgré les différentes appellations, ombudsman, médiateur de la République, protecteur des citoyens, avocat du peuple, et ainsi de suite, nous avons tous un dénominateur commun. Et ce dénominateur commun, c'est que nous sommes tous en charge de la défense du citoyen lorsque ces droits sont bafoués par l'appareil administratif. C'est notre dénominateur commun. Nous sommes des intermédiaires entre les citoyens et les gouvernements pour plaider pour les citoyens lorsque leurs droits sont violés. Et notre rôle est allé croissant. Je ne vais pas revenir sur les aspects historiques parce que l'orateur précédent l'avait déjà dit, mais nous sommes tous reconnaissants que l'institution de l'Ombudsman est dans les pays musulmans. C'était il y a longtemps, du temps du roi Khattab ou Khatib, ou quelque chose comme ça. On peut faire des recherches, mais aujourd'hui on s'accorde pour dire que c'était en 1809 avec le Pro-Justitia Ombudsman en Suède. Ce qui est bien, c'est qu'avec l'expansion, il n'y a pas eu de copier-coller. C'est pourquoi même les appellations ont chaque fois varié suivant les pays, parce que tous les pays n'ont pas appelé, on ne les appelle pas des ombudsman, comme je le disais. Donc il n'y a pas eu de copier-coller et chaque société a pu adapter son institution suivant ses désirs. Et cela se traduit même au niveau du fond qu'au niveau de la forme. Au niveau du fond, même en ce qui concerne les nominations des ombudsman, certains sont élus par les parlements, d'autres sont nommés par les présidents. Et au niveau de la forme, comme je le disais, les noms varient suivant les pays. Et l'expansion, je vais ici peut-être insister au niveau de l'Afrique, parce qu'en Afrique, nous apprenons que le premier ombudsman a vu le jour, c'était en Tanzanie, c'était en 1966. Et dans les pays à tradition anglophone, c'est là où l'institution de l'ombudsman a commencé à s'implanter et progressivement, avec le vent de la démocratie en 1990, dans les pays francophones, c'est là où les institutions de l'ombudsman, qu'on appelle généralement chez eux médiateurs de la République, ont vu le jour. Mais quoi qu'il en soit, il est vraiment indéniable aujourd'hui que l'institution s'est imposée comme un pilier de la démocratie et de la bonne gouvernance, bien entendu, là où le statut légal et l'appareil administratif le lui permet. Mais la question qui se pose alors est de savoir si, étant donné que toutes les sociétés évoluent, parce que les sociétés évoluent, est-ce que l'ombudsman d'aujourd'hui répond aux besoins de la société? Et dans quelle mesure? Est-ce que l'ombudsman de 1809 en Suède, si son statut est resté comme ça, il répond réellement aux désirs des citoyens suédois dont les mentalités ont évolué? C'est la même chose en Afrique. C'est là où alors je vais venir sur l'expansion, non pas en termes d'expansion sous forme d'expansion territoriale, mais simplement l'expansion en termes des missions de nos institutions. Parce qu'il me semble que nos institutions sont plutôt limitées. Je vais y revenir au niveau des défis. Alors, quand je parle des missions, j'ai parlé des missions classiques qui sont la protection des citoyens contre les abus du pouvoir. Mais je voudrais ici parler de l'expansion des missions en termes de missions spécifiques, parce que les sociétés ont évolué. Aujourd'hui, surtout dans les pays africains, lorsque nous parlons de conflits, par exemple, le citoyen ordinaire, lorsque tu lui parles d'un conflit, il y voit déjà le conflit politique, parce que c'est celui-là qui, des fois, a des conséquences collectives sur nos citoyens. Un conflit entre un travailleur et son employeur, des fois, les conséquences sont limitées. Mais les conflits qui ont des conséquences énormes sur nos citoyens, ce sont généralement des conflits politiques, des conflits interreligieux ou d'autres conflits. Est-ce que maintenant l'ombudsman a la possibilité de prévenir ou d'intervenir dans ce genre de conflit? Je crois que peu d'ombudsman ont cette possibilité, alors qu'en réalité, ce sont ce genre de conflits qui interpellent nos sociétés. Alors, je vais revenir sur le cas du Burundi. Au niveau du Burundi, nous avons le privilège d'avoir cette émission, des missions de réconciliation, des missions de paix et des missions de rapprochement des forces politiques et sociales. Je vois aussi qu'au Mali, je crois que le gouvernement commence à faire sentir que le médiateur de la République doit les aider à trouver des solutions aux conflits politiques. On était dans une réunion au Maroc il y a 5 jours. On disait que le médiateur du Mali n'a pas pu venir parce qu'il est en train de faire la médiation entre les hommes politiques au Mali. Ce qui me paraît une très bonne chose. Il a fait également une médiation avec les syndicalistes. Je pense que c'est une bonne chose. Au Burundi aussi, je vous le disais, l'institution de l'Ombudsman a été mise en place après une guerre qui a duré une décennie. C'était avec la signature des accords de paix d'Arusha. Et c'est en ce moment où on a mis en place cette institution avec des missions spéciales pour aider les hommes politiques à chaque fois tempérer les comportements des politiciens. Et la loi qui a instauré l'institution a également insisté sur cette mission. Et nous organisons beaucoup de réunions avec la société civile, avec les partis politiques, et pour prévenir justement les conflits. Nous organisons même des réunions à l'extérieur parce que mon prédécesseur a eu le privilège d'aller intervenir des conflits d'ordre religieux. Donc c'est pour dire que nous avons des missions au niveau interne, mais aussi des missions au niveau externe. Alors, je vous disais qu'il y a des questionnements. Cet état de fait amène à se poser quelques questions et à réfléchir pour davantage d'efficacité et d'efficience, maintenant que l'institution de médiation Ombudsman est bien ancrée dans le paysage politique africain. Je le disais, répond-elle aux besoins réels des populations et des communautés nationales? Quel rôle peut jouer à ces expertises qui sont une façon aussi d'ingérence et d'interférence dans les affaires de nos États? Les principaux défis, il a déjà parlé de ces défis, mon collègue du Botswana. Il est revenu sur le défi d'indépendance, je ne vais pas y insister. Il est revenu sur le défi des budgets, mais je vais revenir sur un seul défi dont je trouve aussi important, c'est le défi du défaut d'harmonisation de nos textes qui nous régissent. Lorsque vous parlez d'un député ou d'un parlementaire, tout le monde sait les missions d'un député, d'un parlementaire. Tu n'as pas besoin de demander. Tu sais, l'Assemblée nationale, les missions des députés sont celles-là. Mais chez nous, lorsqu'on arrive aux institutions d'ombudsman, médiateur, protecteur des citoyens, il faut aller chercher pour voir quelles sont ces missions au Nigeria, quelles sont ces missions en Afrique du Sud, quelles sont ces missions au Burundi. C'est ce défaut d'harmonisation au niveau légal de nos institutions qui aussi constitue un handicap, qui constitue une limite. Et c'est d'ailleurs pourquoi, dans la plupart des pays, grand soit-il, on a l'intention de vouloir superposer chaque fois un ombudsman de telle matière, un ombudsman de telle matière, un ombudsman de telle matière, alors qu'il y a moyen d'harmoniser et faire une même institution, une seule institution, quitte à ce que les autres soient des services de cette institution au niveau national. C'est là où ça serait même facile de pouvoir harmoniser nos textes. Voilà le défi. Et un autre défi, c'est nous sommes dans un monde qui évolue, un monde du numérique. Il nous faut aussi un logiciel unique pour un logiciel de traitement des plaintes qui soit plus ou moins commun à toutes les institutions parce que, comme je le disais, nous sommes dans un monde qui évolue aussi très rapidement. Et je crois que cela, la OMA et le CROA, nos organisations peuvent nous y aider. Voilà, en concluant, je veux dire en un peu de mots que l'institution de l'Ombudsman en Afrique, comme ailleurs dans le monde, s'avère aujourd'hui incontournable et porteuse d'une valeur ajoutée dans une logique de bonne gouvernance et de démocratie. Les États dotés de cette institution devraient pouvoir la mettre au profit au maximum. Au niveau africain, l'association des ombudsman et médiateurs africains doit poursuivre ses efforts de plaidoyer auprès des États membres pour le renforcement du statut juridique de certains médiateurs ombudsman en vue de renforcer leur capacité d'action tant interne qu'externe. Et dans le même registre, considérant la récurrence des conflits dévastateurs internes comme externes, l'organisation devrait promouvoir la création d'un centre de médiation, de résolution des conflits qui serait dédié aux ombudsman et qui regorgerait des ressources humaines pour pouvoir aider les autres organisations internationales à faire la médiation et promouvoir le dialogue dans le monde. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nduimana. I have actually had an opportunity to improve my French, straining my ears to listen. That was an interesting presentation, looking at the Ombudsman and proposing that the Ombudsman have a wider jurisdiction as a mediator so that they can deal with internal conflict situations in the country and be there on the ground because they understand the political situation or the traditions of the people better than the other envoys who come from outside our countries to try and mediate local conflicts. It's an interesting perspective, and I think it can give us a lot of food for thought in looking at the Ombudsman along those lines. So I thank you very much. We shall open for questions from the audience, if any. Yeah, yes, please, sir. Yeah, the microphone, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Pierre Flambeau Ngayap. I'm a senator of Cameroon. I'm sorry if I've not been at the beginning of this session. I don't know if my concern has already been raised at the beginning.
I don't think you should worry about that. Just go ahead. Even if we have to repeat, maybe if you ask the same question, we shall have a better explanation.
Okay, my first
Thank
question will be in English and the second one in French because Cameroon is a bilingual country. My first question is to ask the different speaker if you have already given for Africa the number of countries where ombudsmen are institutionalized. My second question, ma deuxième question concerne la préoccupation de l'intervenant du Burundi, de l'ombudsman du Burundi, pour faire un peu la contribution du Cameroun par rapport à cette institution. Le premier aveu que je voudrais faire, c'est qu'il n'existait pas au Cameroun cette institution sous ce nom-là, même pas sous un autre nom, dans les missions qui sont confiées à cette institution. C'est pour cela que je demandais, pour ce qui concerne l'Afrique, combien de pays ont cette institution de manière formelle. Nous avons bien entendu au Cameroun des préoccupations qui mériteraient que cette institution soit créée, parce que les droits des citoyens qui sont mis à mal par l'administration, on les connaît dans tous les pays. Mais l'expérience du Cameroun, je donnerai deux exemples récents qui montrent deux approches particulières de cette question. Les problèmes qui ont été récurrents au Cameroun ces dernières années ont eu trait davantage à la question du respect du bilinguisme qui est un principe constitutionnel. Le français et l'anglais au Cameroun sont les deux langues officielles d'égale valeur, mais les populations d'expression anglaise ont souvent eu le sentiment que l'anglais n'est pas pris en compte au même titre que le français. Donc il y a là une sorte de violation des droits d'une partie de la population qui ne voit pas sa langue principale prise en considération comme le français. De la même manière, le Cameroun est un pays qui a plus de 200 ethnies, plus de 200 langues nationales, ce qui crée souvent des conflits. Les conflits interreligieux, interethniques, pas interreligieux, il n'y a pas de conflit religieux au Cameroun. Les conflits interethniques ou interculturels peuvent enfreindre les droits de certains concitoyens. Le gouvernement a donc, sur ces deux questions, du bilinguisme et du multiculturalisme, créé il y a à peine 3 ans une commission nationale pour la promotion du bilinguisme et du multiculturalisme qui essaye de prendre en charge toutes les questions relatives à ces deux problèmes clés. Tout récemment, je pense que l'actualité, nous la connaissons tous en Afrique ou ailleurs, à la lumière de la crise que connaissent deux régions principales de notre pays, la région du Nord-Ouest et la région du Sud-Ouest, qui, paradoxalement, par rapport à ce qu'il vient de dire, sont des régions anglophones. Ces deux régions connaissent depuis 3 ans une crise importante qui met en œuvre des citoyens qui revendiquent certains statuts qu'ils n'ont pas, liés à une histoire ancienne. Le lieu n'est pas là pour évoquer tout cela, mais on sait qu'il y a un conflit interne qui oppose les régions dites anglophones avec une certaine conception de l'État. Le gouvernement a pensé, et c'est pour cela que je rejoins ce que l'interlocuteur burundais vient de dire, qu'il fallait, à travers un dialogue, qu'on a appelé le grand dialogue national, tenter de mettre ensemble tous les protagonistes de cette crise pour essayer de résoudre ce problème. Cela ressemble à un moment où on a mis en place environ 500 médiateurs, 500 ombudsman qui sont mis ensemble pour régler un problème. D'où ma question, est-ce que l'ombudsman doit toujours être une institution permanente ou il ne peut pas être une institution créée pour résoudre un problème majeur qui traverse la société? Vous avez rappelé les crises dans les régions des Grands Lacs qui ont pu être réglées par des ombudsmen ou par des institutions qui ont cette valeur-là. Mais est-ce que lorsqu'une crise est profonde et durable, on ne peut pas imaginer la mise en place d'ombudsmen ou un ensemble d'ombudsmen qui se mettent ensemble pour trouver une solution à ces crises-là? Merci.
Thank you very much for the question and the observations. They are very, very important. They are actually challenging the Office of Ombudsman as it operates today. I'll ask Ms. Pierman, I'll ask Alba for any comments.
I was listening because my equipment wasn't translated in English, but I do know some French.
Okay.
So I was trying to follow what he was saying, and the little I understood was that it is an issue about the 200 languages in this country and the consequences of not being able to communicate what is happening. Because I have not understood enough, I do not feel that I can properly answer this question.
Okay, the Ombudsman of Burundi. I think you also touched on some of the issues raised by the question, so we are looking to you for answers.
Merci encore une fois. Merci honorable sénateur pour ces questions très pertinentes. Vous avez demandé, vous avez voulu savoir combien de pays ont formalisé les institutions d'ombudsman en Afrique. Et ici, je vais peut-être le dire sous le contrôle de ma présidente de la protectrice des citoyens de l'Afrique du Sud. Mais je crois que vous allez peut-être, c'est 49, je crois 49 pays en Afrique ont déjà formalisé les institutions d'ombudsman. If I am wrong, our chair can maybe correct me. Is it true? 44, c'est 44. Hein? Donc, vous comprenez que le Cameroun reste en arrière, mais il y a d'autres institutions qui sont assimilées. Et je sais que le Cameroun participe dans nos réunions. Il y a une commission de lutte anticorruption, je crois. C'est celle-là qui fait office d'ombudsman et qui des fois participe dans nos réunions. Et il est d'ailleurs membre de l'Afrique centrale au sein de notre région. Donc, il serait bien de formaliser, d'instituer la médiature comme dans d'autres pays de l'Afrique francophone. Et je crois que c'est même une recommandation des Nations Unies. Les Nations Unies, à la résolution de 1998, si j'ai bonne mémoire, avaient formulé cette intention de voir dans tous les pays instaurer les institutions de médiation d'ombudsman pour mieux défendre les droits des citoyens. Vous avez soulevé également la question en rapport avec l'ombudsman qui serait un médiateur ponctuel pour régler les questions de façon ponctuelle et circonstancielle, et que peut-être ça devrait être une institution qui ne devrait pas être permanente. Non, je crois que, vous savez, l'institution peut être permanente, mais la résolution de certaines questions, il y a certaines questions qui se posent ponctuellement, circonstanciellement. Un pays ne peut pas vivre perpétuellement dans un état de conflit. Mais je crois que le plus important, ce n'est pas la résolution, c'est plutôt aussi la prévention. Et l'institution de médiation serait plutôt là de façon permanente pour justement prévenir ces conflits. Parce que lorsque ça arrive déjà à un peu de résolution, c'est déjà grave. Et je pense que la permanence de l'institution aiderait, en collaboration avec les autres institutions nationales, à prévenir justement ces conflits. Donc, c'est pourquoi nous plaidons pour une institution d'ombudsman permanente, pour plus de prévention, plutôt que de chaque fois à résoudre un conflit. La meilleure médiation, c'est la prévention. Lorsque vous voulez vraiment faire une médiation, il faut prévenir les conflits. Donc, la permanence d'une institution d'ombudsman serait plutôt la meilleure. Je vous remercie.
Yes, the Ombudsman of Botswana, some additional observations.
Hello. Thank you, Madam. I was a bit reluctant to comment, but I think it will be really not fair for us not to comment. I mean, what our colleague from Cameroon was saying. I think from my point of view, we should not treat the Ombudsman institution as if it's a panacea of all social and political problems. I think sometimes the leadership, the political leadership, should attend to some of these issues in a way of as a preventative measure. They should take legal and administrative measures to ensure that these issues are addressed, and there should be no, so that if issues of culture, issues of languages, and so on and so forth, these are political issues. They have to be addressed by the leadership. I see there are situations where there's a serious lack of political leadership for such a long time that these things end up becoming a crisis, because nobody ever took the leadership, the political leadership, to address these issues. So for me, my friend, I think it's high time that our political leaders in Africa really come to the plate and address these issues, because before they become a crisis. They have to be addressed. Legal and administrative issues, measures must be put in place to ensure that they don't recur as a crisis in the long term. So now that is my view. Ombudsman, otherwise we are going to throw everything to the Ombudsman. The Ombudsman is not a panacea of all social ills. There are other stakeholders that have to play a role, a crucial, critical role to ensure that otherwise you'll be everything will be coming your way. You are going to be overwhelmed. You know, you are not jack of all trades and masters of none. No, I mean, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we would welcome other comments on this same question. I can see the Public Protector of South Africa, please.
Thank you so much. I'd like to take this opportunity to mobilize and recruit Cameroon. We're giving you an opportunity to please join IOMA, the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association, because you are not a member, and this is an institution which is there to help Africa and to help the African Union with Agenda 2063, and to make sure that we create the Africa we want. We assist our governments in good governance, issues of rule of law, issues of human rights. But then what you are raising, especially what is happening between English and French, what I would say to you, for instance, you can also conduct best practices visits throughout other countries. In South Africa, for instance, our constitution, and which was also motivated by O.R. Tambo, where they encourage that we have all the institutions which are promoting human rights, promoting good governance. For instance, we do have a commission which is provided for in the constitution, responsible for promotion of cultural, religious, and linguistics, right? We do have a board which is responsible for languages, because we've got 11 official languages. So if one nationality or ethnic group is complaining about their language, then they can lodge their complaint to this constitutional institution. So we are there as constitutional institution to support and strengthen our countries. So I think those social cohesion issues, we are there for that. We have Gender Commission, which is also promoting the issue of gender equality, the Human Rights Commission, the Auditor General, and then the Public Protector, which is an ombudsman. So I think we are here to share those experiences which you can take back home and see how we can help you to do that. But then please mobilize your country to join the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other observations? Yes, please. Then I'll come to the gentleman there.
Hello, my name is Leon Jenkins Johnston, and I'm the Ombudsman for the Republic of Sierra Leone. I have a very mundane question to any number of the speakers. What do you think the proper nomenclature should be for the Ombudsman office, as to whether it should be the Public Protector, the Public Defender, or the Ombudsman? And how do you think the nomenclature impacts on how the citizens see the work of the Ombudsman?
I'll call upon any of the presenters to comment.
Yes, I would like to comment on that. I can use the example of Latin America. It was created as the defender of the people, because that is what the people wanted. That is what the people needed. Because in Latin America, as you might know, there are a lot of problems in human rights violations that are very serious, like people would disappear. Police would come in and get people, take them to prison, or you just disappear, no one knows where you are. We have the problem with the guerrillas that would attack any little town and force the people there, the men, to go work in the fields of drugs, of cocaine. Or they would force the youngsters to become soldiers, things like that. And in the beginning, the ombudsman took his role as an ombudsman that would fight maladministration, but very quickly it was discovered that that isn't enough. The ombudsman has to get out of his office, go to the problem spot, try to mediate, try to interfere, try to solve, at least try to bring attention of the government to the seriousness of the problem that any town or rural situation is facing. And because of that, we use the term defender of the people, because our ombudsman is more in defense of the people than, let's say, the European ombudsman, who is a neutral figure, who listens to the complaint, listen to the government, and by doing its own investigation, come at a certain point with a resolution. As someone said, the win-win situation, try to satisfy everyone. But in Latin America, that is not, in most of the times, it's not possible. So the role of the ombudsman then was changed and became gradually the ombudsman as the defender of the people in the sense that of the word. Not a neutral ombudsman, but an ombudsman defending the people. I think perhaps one of my colleagues who has the other side of the coin, the European Ombudsman complex, can.
Okay. Thank you very much. The gentleman there, please, your question or observation.
Je vais parler en français. Je m'appelle Abdul Aziz Sissé. Je suis l'ombudsman régional pour le comité international de la Croix-Rouge. Donc, je m'occupe surtout de la résolution des conflits sur le lieu de travail. Et je pense que la création de ces postes dans ces institutions vient de votre expérience en tant qu'ombudsman qui intervient au niveau étatique. Mais je voudrais savoir, est-ce qu'il y a une complémentarité entre le travail que vous faites et celui fait au niveau des institutions? Et dans une organisation comme la vôtre, est-ce que vous êtes en train de penser à créer plus d'espace et de network pour ces organisations qui ont ces bureaux d'ombudsman dans leur lieu de travail, et pour qu'il y ait au moins une bonne échange d'expérience, mais aussi une meilleure utilisation de ces services qui est très bien apprécié à ma connaissance dans certaines institutions du fait de son informalité et de sa solution win-win. Je vous remercie.
Any comments from the panel? Okay. Any comments from the audience? Yes, please. From Angola? Yes.
Boa tarde a todos. Eu vou falar em português. Espero que a tradução seja correta. Começo por elogiar e felicitar a organização desse evento, porque é mais um contributo para os provedores de justiça em África e acho que poderemos fazer noutros países. A minha questão é a seguinte: em Angola, de acordo com a Constituição e com a Lei do Estatuto do Provedor de Justiça, o provedor de justiça não tem poder decisório. E nas questões de mediação que o provedor de justiça tem feito, questões de expropriação de terras, de pensões de alimento, pensões de velhice, relacionadas com os tribunais e outros, a minha questão fundamental é ouvir a experiência de outros países em relação a uma dificuldade que nós temos. Em qualquer país, os tribunais são independentes e só devem obediência à lei, tal como em Angola. Mas nós temos, às vezes, o provedor de justiça tem que intervir em relação à morosidade processual. Quer dizer que se há algum processo no tribunal que demora anos, como os casos geralmente de expropriação de terrenos, ou ainda quando há questões de ocupação ilegal de imóveis, que são os casos que demoram muito tempo a resolver em Angola, ou ainda os problemas de herança, se também nos outros países coloca-se a questão se pode intervir em relação à morosidade processual, não em relação ao fundo da questão do tribunal. Porque já sabemos que o mérito da questão é algo secreto e que só deve obediência à lei. Quer dizer que os juízes só devem obediência à lei. Mas em relação à tramitação processual, Por exemplo, com o anterior presidente do Tribunal Supremo, nós encontrávamos uma certa dificuldade, mesmo em relação à morosidade processual. O que achamos que devemos interferir, uma vez que o cidadão não pode esperar eternamente por um caso que está no Tribunal Supremo. Ou muitas vezes há uma sentença e que não é cumprida. Gostaria de saber qual é a opinião ou qual é a experiência dos outros países. Muito obrigado.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any comments from the, yeah? Any comments from, yes, the public protector from Zambia?
I just wanted to address the comment from the Ombudsman from the Red Cross. Am I given to understand that you were asking about sector-specific ombudsmen and organizational ombudsmen, whether they are represented within AOMA? Yes, we do have sector-specific ombudsman. We have here the Military Services Ombudsman, who is a member of AOMA. And we have, I think, the Ombudsman of the City of Cape Town, the Police Ombudsman of Cape Town. They are members of AOMA. So you are very, very welcome. If you would like to become a member of AOMA, please, you're very welcome to apply. And just, I think, a clarification, when the interpreter was speaking, he was saying, how do we get the judgments of the courts to be enforced? I think she was saying, how do we get the judgments of the ombudsman to be enforced? I think people might be confused. Yeah, I think for the panel, thank you.
Any other? Yes? Any other questions, observations from the audience? Yes, any?
The lady from Angola, can you just very abbreviate, explain what you said in Spanish instead of Portuguese? Because I can't capture all of it. Portuguese is very similar to Spanish, but a lot of what you said I didn't capture, and I don't have an equipment. Could you just very briefly say that in Spanish?
5:11. Oh, mashallah. 4 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes more.
Eu prefiro que o tradutor faça a tradução, resumindo que o que eu pretendo saber é a experiência dos outros provedores ou ombudsmen em relação à intervenção dos provedores a nível da tramitação processual dos processos que demoram nos tribunais, tendo em conta que o presidente do Tribunal Supremo anterior achava que era uma ingerência. Nós compreendemos que não pode ser na questão, no assunto da questão, mas se demora o processo, o cidadão está a ser violado o seu direito. Logo, o ombudsman tem que intervir, mas o tradutor poderá dizer.
I don't think the translation was very clear, but for what I understand is your question is, if the ombudsman has to deal with a ruling of the court, how does the ombudsman has to react on that?
What she was trying to say was that, what is the position of the other countries? What were their experiences concerning the intervention of the ombudsman when there is a case pending in the court for a long time, and the Chief Justice of the Federation feels that the ombudsman cannot come in if they are having the same problem elsewhere?
Well, I can speak for the Netherlands. Curaçao is part of the Dutch Kingdom. When there is a ruling of the court, or when, as soon as as a complaint is being handled in the court, the ombudsman has to step back. Once the court has finished with its ruling, if in that ruling there are areas that has to do with, how do you say that in English? It has to do not with the legal issues, but it has to do with the expectation that the government, in its approach of the people, should always be correct and should always respect the feelings of the people. Not only the legal aspect, has the government acted wrongly towards the person, that you cannot touch if the judge has already made a ruling on that. But if in the process of denying the people a certain right, the government also has stepped on his right of being respected and be treated correctly, then the ombudsman can take up that part of the issue of the complaint of that person. That part the ombudsman can always deal with.
Oui, merci. Je vais essayer peut-être de compléter, de partager l'expérience de mon pays, mais en précisant d'abord qu'en vertu du principe de séparation des pouvoirs, vous savez que le pouvoir judiciaire dans les démocraties, c'est un pouvoir indépendant. Ce qui, du coup, interdit à quiconque d'interférer dans des dossiers qui sont pendants devant les juridictions. Même le président de la République, lorsqu'un dossier est dans un tribunal, il est interdit d'intervenir sous peine d'être poursuivi pour violation de la Constitution. Ça, c'est le premier principe. Deuxièmement, au niveau de l'ombudsman chez nous, au niveau de la loi, nous avons le pouvoir d'intervenir dans des dossiers judiciaires lorsque le dossier est coulé en force de chose jugée. C'est-à-dire lorsqu'il y a eu un jugement qui a été rendu, mais dont une partie n'a pas pu avoir ce dont il a eu gain de cause. L'ombudsman peut demander à la juridiction, lui instruire, de mettre en application le jugement et dans un délai que je peux fixer moi-même. Je peux dire dans un délai de 2 semaines, il faut avoir terminé, d'avoir clôturé la mise en application de ce jugement. Et si cette fois, si la juridiction refuse, nous avons d'autres mécanismes. Nous pouvons, en partenariat avec le président de l'Assemblée ou du Sénat, demander à ce que le ministre soit convoqué pour dysfonctionnement de son service judiciaire. Il est convoqué devant le Parlement, le représentant du peuple, pour qu'il explique pourquoi il y a un dysfonctionnement à tel point que certains jugements ne sont pas mis en application. Mais au niveau des dossiers qui sont devant les juridictions encore en cours, je crois qu'il nous est interdit d'intervenir. Voilà notre contribution. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of our session today. There are many questions, of course, that can be raised. Sorry.
It says that when the case goes to the court of law and it takes too long for the judgment to come, and the detention was intentional to punish the citizen because of the delay in giving judgment.
Yes, Honorable Ombudsman of Burundi.
Très bien. En réalité, je ne veux pas prétendre, moi aussi, peut-être répondre correctement à la question, mais cela relève plutôt du domaine de la collaboration entre les institutions. Je crois que l'Ombudsman, c'est une institution qui travaille avec les autres institutions. s'il est évident que le dossier traîne en justice pour des raisons qui sont imputables au service de la justice, l'ombudsman peut appeler informellement, pas de façon formelle, informellement, soit au juge, soit au ministre, pour lui interpeller sur cette question, lui dire voilà, le dossier tel traîne à longueur pour des raisons telles et telles. Cette fois-ci de façon informelle. Si le ministre ne parvient pas à résoudre rapidement la question, c'est là alors où on peut faire recours au Parlement pour demander au Parlement de convoquer le ministre dans des séances de questions orales avec débat pour lui dire voilà, il y a des dysfonctionnements, des dossiers qui traînent, des juges qui se méconduisent. Mais encore qu'au niveau du Burundi, c'est aussi un atout. La Constitution nous autorise de faire une enquête sur un juge qui se méconduit. Par exemple, un juge qui fait qui est avéré qu'il fait des corruptions, un juge qui fait traîner des dossiers. L'ombudsman peut faire des enquêtes individuelles sur le juge et faire un rapport au niveau du président de la République ou du Conseil supérieur de magistrature pour dire voilà, tel juge, ils sont méconduits. Et comme ça, on prend des sanctions. C'est une mission, une prérogative constitutionnelle qui nous est reconnue par la Constitution du Burundi. Je vous remercie.
She says thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's quite interesting, and I know that delegates will continue discussing informally in their groups or as we have dinner. It remains for me to thank the panel for an interesting discussion. I'm sure that we have learned quite a lot, and we can see the challenges that the Ombudsman institution continues to face. The question is, how do we face the future? Thank you very much for all of you for attending. I also wish to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of the International Ombuds Expo. This being the very first time that we are having this type of expo, it's really impressive that we have so many delegations attending and also discussing all the issues that affect the Ombudsman institutions in our regions. It remains for me also to thank the hospitality committee of the hotel. We are enjoying our stay here. We feel very safe, and we are also enjoying the variety of meals that we are taking in the hotel. Please continue to host us for the rest of the expos. We are still continuing with our programs. So thank you very much. We've come to the end of this session.